Sign up to the SBR Network and use your free daily bet points to earn real-world prizes. Click on the page and start winning now. Hi, welcome to SBR Forum Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are previewing the 2014 NBA playoffs right now with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Right now we're going to discuss the Atlanta-Indiana series. Joe Duffy, thanks for being back with us.
All right, thank you, Peter. Let's have another great NBA playoffs.
Absolutely. All right, now before we get into this, give a little plug for OffshoreInsiders.com because, hey, look, if you're good at handicapping a sport, why should you hide it? Go ahead. Tell us how good you've been in the NBA playoffs historically.
This will be my 27th playoff where my picks are public, going back to the score phone days. So I've been around a long time. For those few of you who have never heard of me before, but led by my famed bounce back theory, we're going to specify what that is in the analysis. There's a couple parameters. You know, there's not exact parameters. We have different versions of it, but that's one of the many reasons why I've done extremely well in the NBA playoffs. Get my picks at OffshoreInsiders.com.
All right, sounds great, Joe Duffy. Hawks and Pacers. Now, the Pacers, probably one of the most interesting teams in the NBA. They are the #1 seed in the East, but their ATS record in the second half of the season was absolutely horrific. I mean, they were losing, they were covering 10% of their games for an extended period of time, the entire second half of the season. I mean, it's just abysmal. Their offense has been awful. Since the All-Star break, the worst team in the NBA in terms of points per 100% possessions was the Sixers, of course, the worst team in the NBA. Second worst team was Indiana. That's how anemic their offense has been in the second half of the series. It's turned them into a bad bet overall in the year, 38-43-1 against the spread. They're playing the Hawks, though, who are just in general not very good, and without Al Horford, they're even worse. The Pacers are -600 to win the series. The Hawks +450. I can understand why the Pacers are such a big favorite, but just looking at how betting on them has gone in the second half of the season, betting on them at a -600 price to win a series, I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, I would agree with you, and let me do a little bit of bragging, but the Pacers were one of the all-time great, what I call the dichotomous straight up and ATS theory, where if a team is winning straight up but not covering, or if they're losing straight up but they're covering, that you ride that spread run, and there's many reasons behind it, but yeah, the Pacers have been great at that. But no, they are a legitimate upset possibility for all the reasons you said. I also think that they really didn't want to play Atlanta in the first round because Roy Hibbert is one of the best defensive centers in the league, but the way to beat Roy Hibbert is to have a nice athletic center who can hit from outside, and Pero Antic for the Hawks is a pretty darn good player. He averaged 17 points against the Pacers this year, his highest against any team, and that's because he could bring Hibbert from outside the basket, where Hibbert is his best, near the basket, and he matches up pretty well against Hibbert. Obviously, Hibbert is struggling greatly on offense. He's really the #1 reason that the Pacers are struggling. That can affect his defense, I think, and vice versa. And the fact that Hibbert's going to have to come out of his comfort zone on defense, that can affect him on offense. And exactly what you said, in the NBA playoffs, again, you have to be able to get points because the defensive intensity goes up there, and the fact that the Pacers, exactly as you said, were second worst to the 76ers since the All-Star break offensively, they are vulnerable, and the Hawks are, without question, my best upset pick of the first round. The Hawks could win this. Now, again, if I'm writing for a newspaper where I don't have to worry about odds, I would probably pick the Pacers in 7. But from a betting standpoint, the Hawks are a great value.
Yeah, I mean, the Hawks actually were 7-1 against the spread over their last 8 games. And Indiana, again, they were something horrific over their last, 35 games of the regular season. Game 1, the Pacers are -7.5. They are at home. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that the Pacers are going to suddenly shift gears and become a team with a lockdown defense and a team that can score enough to get double-digit covers reliably at home?
No. As I said, I think the Spurs and Miami, they're the two teams that have the ability to turn it on and turn it off. The Pacers, they don't have the cachet to do that. I think there's some legitimate panic there. And, for those who are more into the plus-minus statistics, keep in mind that the Hawks can go with DeMarre Carroll a few more minutes. The Hawks were actually plus 3.4 points per 100 possessions when Carroll was on the court, and they were outscored by 6.5 with him on the bench. But the good news is, where you're not playing the 3 games in 4 days, the 5 games in 7 days, you can play your star players a few more minutes. So, again, I think the Hawks are going to give the Pacers everything they've asked for and more. And in Game 1, they might pull off the upset, but I definitely think they'll cover.
So the Hawks plus 7.5 in game one may have some value. And then what do you think about maybe unders in this series? Because Indiana, their offense might not be working. Their defense is still always great. And that is something they can turn up with effort in the playoffs. And the Hawks also, they were actually an overtrender on the year, but all of their covering at the end of the year also coincided with unders. So it seems like maybe they found sort of a little defensive spark. And total 186 of an opening round playoff game with two defensive-oriented teams. Do you think maybe an under might have some value?
Now, here's where we actually disagree, but this will also be a perfect example demonstrative of one of my golden rules, where I always say that handicapping totals is much more about pace than it is offensive or defensive competence or incompetence or what have you. You're 100% correct. The Pacers have been struggling offensively, but the Atlanta knows their best bet to win this series is to really open it up. They don't want to get into a grind-out series where they've got to bring it inside, where Hibbert can really be stronger on defense. I think Atlanta is going to open it up. So it's not going to be a pretty offensive series, but I think it's going to be pretty up-tempo. And with a low total like that, 190 points is going to put it over the total. And I think the Hawks are really going to try to speed up the pace. So I think the over is going to be the good play, not because of great offenses, but because of low totals and a higher pace.
Thanks so much, Joe Duffy, once again.
All right, thank you, Peter.